Danielle Morales. I'm an assistant professor of sociology at the UTEP. I'm very happy to be here today, and my colleague, Dr. Adelina Holguin, will facilitate this workshop with me. I will let her introduce herself.
All right, so I'm Adelina Holguin. I'm a postdoc here at UTEP in the biological sciences, and I'm happy also to be here and be a facilitator with Danielle for a first name basis.
Okay, so Adelina, since last year, we start to have this Mentoring Matters workshops because we realize mentoring is really important part of our job, our service. I think most of us doing it. We mentor our students, including undergraduate students, graduate students, postdocs. Sometimes our colleagues will also do peer mentoring. But mentoring is like something we always do it, but we do not really know, are we doing a good job? Are we doing the right thing? How to assess the relationship? How to evaluate our work? So for those different workshops, we have been focusing on different topics. We start with how to align the expectations between mentor and mentee, and very important, how to build good communication between mentors and mentees. And more specifically, we're focused on how, as mentors, how can we understand our students better. So today, we're going to focus on promoting professional development. Because when mentoring students, of course, we would like to see them to become successful. For example, to have a better GPA, to go to graduate school, to have a good job, those academic outcomes. And when it comes to research, we want our students to be able to finish their projects, go to conferences, or publish papers. But sometimes besides those academic or research outcomes, there are also some other outcomes we do not often think about. For example, I'm a demographer. I've noticed that although we're trained to be researchers, but over the time we gain some specific skills, for example, data analysis skills. And since we have to do so many presentations, we're becoming better at the public speaking. A lot of my friends using those skills, they get very good jobs. They're not necessarily researchers, but they get very good jobs. So professional development is also an important part of mentoring. And so next, Adelina will start talking about the mentor's roles in promoting professional development.
Okay. So we're going to do an activity, and you're going to take on the role of a mentor. So we'd like you to pair up with someone, teams of two, and start, you can jot down or just have a conversation for about 5 minutes. What are those things that you think a mentor will facilitate to their mentee? And these are keywords or short phrases that I want you to brainstorm with the person that you're working with. And then we will regroup and then start discussing those ideas that you're developing. So everyone has touched one of the terms that I'm going to put on the board here. I think you said resources over at this table. Maybe that related to funding, time management, leadership skills, right? Career path, where they're going, what's coming, what's the next step. Public speaking, I think this table over here brought up a little bit about that. Research ethics. Writing skills, fostering informal mentoring relationships. I heard this come up in different forms of how to guide the student. So which ones of these do you feel will take precedence in your mentoring? Because it's a long list.
I think leadership skills maybe would take precedence, because if you're kind of helping them develop to be leaders, then they can kind of have that own internal initiative to to learn new things and access different resources. And so if you're equipping them and then they become a leader, then they can access these other parts.
Okay. How about someone from this table?
I would say between leadership and funding, because even though funding needs to be there.
Funding is critical, right?
Yeah.
So if you can imagine yourself mentoring someone, how would it change your list over the changes that mentees taking? Maybe an undergrad to graduate student or graduate students about to complete their training. How would it change your mentoring towards that mentee? And you can refer to the list, maybe you want to upskill one. Oh, go ahead, Ms.
I'll speak of personal experience. What I kind of like to, if I was mentoring an undergraduate student, I would focus a lot on writing skills because it's important for them to then be able to matriculate into graduate school and then be able to, write everything that they need. So writing is important. So at an undergraduate level, I would focus a lot on writing skills and socialization to the local lab culture, because a lot of students, when they come into a lab, or we were talking about that, how the hierarchy of a department, like who's who, how to make sure you talk to them in a way that reflects respect. But then if I'm talking to, if I'm mentoring a graduate student, I would still focus on writing because that's always going to be important. But I think I would focus a lot on career path exploration and guidance, just because of what's out there in the literature, that the typical tenure track is oversaturated, and so I know that a lot of grad students are thinking about that. So I would like to make them realize that there's a different path that you can take and still be successful with your PhD.
All right. How about if we add to that? What else?
Probably communication skills that will include the public speaking, the writing, and the socialization portion with anyone, not only to the lab culture. Probably should be the leaders.
I would focus more on the career path, and maybe because again I'm a staff member and I'm an accountant, and I guess in my field you can go the private route or you can go the public route. If you decide to go the private route, there's many options, different industries, many areas where you can find yourself. If you go the public path, you can even end up in academia, for example. Do you want to are you preparing yourself as and you might want to go to graduate school, for example, and just continue there. So to me, at this point, with my limited experience, that's what I would focus on. Not obviously not that the others are not important, but right now
But that's what you will focus on, right? So
Can I add?
yeah,
Sorry.
sure.
That, because you're a staff member, you felt that I'm a staff member and I serve this faculty also, and I think a lot of the mentoring things that we do in terms of professional development with the students, whether undergraduate or graduate, depends on what their goals are. Because we end up taking it into context, right, and then seeing where they need something so that we could hopefully get them stronger in that area to meet their goals.
And then we're going to have an activity that's going to touch on that same specific point. Which one of these, or which few of these, do you feel that it's not the mentor's responsibility? Which ones do you feel that's not really my role as a mentor that I should be doing? If any. Or maybe it's not even up. You think all of them? And that's a huge job, right? Now you start seeing all these different things that we can provide for a mentee. It's a lot to consider, the different aspects.
Well, one thing I would suggest is getting to know the mentee better. Find out where they want to go. sometimes they may not know exactly where they want to go, but what we can do is help them discover that. You know, I had one person working on a second master's degree and teaching in public schools, and he was my graduate assistant. And as we wandered through this, we realized he really needed a PhD. He really wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And he got into Purdue, and he got the scholarships, and he moved his family there. That was a big deal, you know? But it worked out well for him, and he got his PhD.
And it was after this conversation.
Well, you know, when you get to know your mentee, sometimes you realize they don't know how good they are, right? You know, they really don't know how good they are. And so you have to help them discover that. You know, even when they're writing their letters, you know, for their applications, you know, and they're responding. And you say, wait a minute, you're half Korean, you've been raised in El Paso, and you've always been an outsider. Why aren't you addressing this? You know, addressing race, addressing all those different things. So,
That's a very insightful perspective, experience.
Thank you for the wonderful conversation. And Adelina, I just want to say Adelina, she's a big fan and also expert on active learning. So she likes to make everybody talk, everybody do work. So we all have to do something. Whenever we have a workshop, I always want to say, well, as a group, we're really interested in mentoring, but I mean, we're experts on mentoring because mentoring is so complicated, so difficult. Often people attend this workshop have more experience than us. But what we really want to do is to start this conversation at the UTEP, to have people to come to share their experience, like what we just did right now. And obviously, it's very encouraging to see so many people to come and so many people at this campus care about mentoring. Okay, so based on the conversation, a little bit talk about really, those roles really depends on students' goals. And also thank you for the experience about how can we help students realize what they really want and what their goals. It's difficult, but we have a little tool we want to share with everybody. And today I want to introduce you the IDP, Individual Development Plan. This is this one just an example. As you go through this, you can see the first part of the IDP is what are your goals? As Lupe just mentioned, goals are very important. Goals could include short-term goals, long-term goals, could short-term goals from 6 months or for 10 years, 20 years. So when you have a mentee, you could ask your mentee to start to think about the roles and by filling out this form. After the goals, what competencies and skills will you need to successfully reach your goals? And then we'll help the mentee to think about what kind of skills they want to get, they want to learn. And after skills are activities. What activities experience when you engage in to gain the competencies and skills. And after activities, very important, how will you assess your progress in mastering those competencies and the skills. And the last, who will help you reach your goals and how. They show a table here. I just really like this table because last semester I was writing a grant. They want a table like this. I just couldn't design a good one. When I saw this, like, oh, I should get this before. Because as you can see, this table really connected the goals, skills, activities, and assessment and support people. And you can put everything together. So this is just an example of IDP. Right now I want to ask you, have you ever used something like this before? And if so, what do you think? Do you think this is useful or you have any challenges, even if you never used IDP before, do you think you're going to use one for your future mentoring? And if there are any challenges, hesitate when using IDPs. Any other comments?
I've done something similar with undergraduate students that are interns in our office. We've done it a little bit more short term, so we're really evaluating them usually like on a monthly basis.
Wow.
And it's a goal. They're setting goals that they can achieve like within a semester or within a school year related to their positions. And I meet with them once a month to see what progress they're making. We give them some guidance of what some potential goals might be, and then in there they set their own goals. I like the assessment of the program and the support people in roles. I think that's a piece that we haven't incorporated in the past, so I think that that's helpful.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I do. I also like the support people because Adelina was asking, do you think mentors should do everything? Yeah, we although sometimes as a mentor we feel like we want to do everything for the students, but they may also get help, support from the peers, even family members, and it's good for them to think about more people to support them. Any other comments? From this table?
I feel like I've tried to use some of these principles, but not in such an organized fashion.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think sometimes it's helpful if you have something structured. But based on my experience as a mentee, when I was a mentee, I really don't like those super complicated ones. Like it will take like hours to finish it. Then the student will just basically give it up. I think we want something structured, but also simple and straightforward. Okay, so this is just an example. You can definitely try to use it when you're mentoring somebody. And please let us know if you find other more useful or better for it. Thank you.
So in this scenario, we're interjecting a little bit of reality on what it's the norm. And we have two students, one going to medical school, one's planning to go to graduate school or pursue the PhD. And the mentor kind of convinced themselves, well, one of them, I'm more familiar with that path than the other one. So let me start off with a few questions so we can start our discussion. So the responsibilities of the mentor to the mentee, what are they regardless of the career path of the mentee? And we can go back to the first list. We can just put it up here. You can keep using this list if you like. But what are those responsibilities that, regardless of the path, what are those responsibilities?
The advice.
All of these?
No,
All of
still all of this.
The advice.
I think putting them in touch with someone who might know more about the career path they want and supporting the idea that, you just don't have the knowledge that they're looking for. We don't have to know everything to provide guidance.
Okay. So what about, let me come back to this, value systems? Value system of the mentee, and here you have potential two different value systems, two different students and your own. How does that factor in?
It's good to discuss those things with the mentees and be open. I think we need to also look within ourselves and see what's causing those biases. And even tell them about it. Why not? They're adults. Bring those things up and say, especially because if we have them, somebody else that they encounter is also going to have them. But if we tell them why we think that way and that we may be wrong, possibly, probably, and but still within the context of what they want to do, because it's important to them and because they're important to us. They need to know that because they're important to us, what they want to do is important to us.
And what are those value systems? Because maybe in this room, they're different, right? So what are those value systems that you consider are important to you for your mentees to have, and then what are those value systems that the mentee believes are important to you. Another example, maybe if your value system is how often and how you communicate. Maybe you prefer emails and your mentee prefers texting. Now we have to consider that, right? So now I find myself communicating more with some professors over texting, which is unheard of when I was a student. So those are like value systems, and they're changing so rapidly. So that you kind of just think about that before I introduce the next question. So in this scenario, we had a female pursuing a PhD, and we had a male pursuing a Yeah. So we're going to dissect that little paragraph. So, does it matter? What is your intuition? Should not matter?
I'm glad to know I missed that. Yeah.
Does it matter?
No.
So I think there's a consensus. Everyone says.
I felt like I wanted to know more about why they were both so set on the direction they wanted to go. So maybe the student who wants to do an MD has very good justifiable reasons. Maybe he has misconceptions about an MD as well. And without knowing some of that information, I mean, it's hard to guide them into saying, I think you're making a mistake, even if what they think is going to happen in medical school is totally different than the reality of it.
Yeah.
So maybe this person, the mentor, is just frustrated that the student is so set on it, even though it's not a good fit, or the mentor perceives it's not a good fit. And I think it's important to understand some of those things so that we can really help put them in touch with someone who can help answer their true questions and make sure that they're headed in the direction that they really want to go. They may not know that there are other options out there, that there are a lot of MDs who also do research. I mean, you can do an MD PhD if they really like both.
And you as a mentor are picking up these things, right? As an experienced versus a professional, you can pick these things up from students, right? And so what you're saying is actually making them aware of these other possibilities. So, well, you've already said the sex doesn't matter, so my next question was going to be to you, what if you reverse the sex? But I think everyone says it doesn't make a difference. So, go ahead.
Well, I think that one of the things that we have to think about is, number one, many of our students come from families where there's no one that has a college education. And a lot of them do. On the other hand, every engineer you meet practically, and every doctor you meet, and every attorney you meet probably has a family member who is a doctor or an engineer or an attorney. So they come into it in a different realm. In other words, if you really look at the graduates from our engineering school, and you ask them, even if they're girls, they're from a family with engineers.
Right.
They didn't, like Dr. Brand, they didn't jump into it on their own. So that's why we have two different audiences. The ones that it kind of comes in the family, and the other ones where you need to introduce them to people.
Okay. Which you led us to the next point about socialization. How do you go about the socialization aspect of your students? So you have these two a graduate student. Socialization, how do you introduce them to the culture? How do they learn the ropes, if you will? How do you go about it if you have students going in two different directions?
With the lab, it's a lot easier because we're more used to that, and so we introduce them from the very beginning as an undergraduate with different things that you have to do in the particular lab, and then sometimes we introduce them to other labs and colleagues and stuff like that. So that's a lot easier. The medical school one, that's why it's so important to establish those other networks ourselves so that we do know who to let them know, because sometimes they could, I know that there are doctors that let them shadow them through things and stuff like that, and so those types of opportunities will be key to them to learn more about the experiences.
Yeah.
So, and then from your experiences, what have you learned in terms of students maybe not getting that socialization, or they have had it?
I've worked with a lot of pre-college students, so high school to first generation college students. And when I meet with them, I'll ask, what is your interest? What kind of job do you want to have? And they'll say, I want to be a veterinarian. Oh, great. Did you take all the sciences in high school? Have you volunteered at a pet shelter? Do you know what that's like? And they'll say no. And so you just kind of, I have a grad student right now who doesn't know what they want to do with it afterwards. So we're doing a career investigation right now with what do you do with a master's degree in linguistics, because we don't offer a applied linguistics PhD here. What do you do with it? And so it's the question is, are you willing to move is one question of socialization, especially for El Paso. Are you willing to move? So
That's really important.
Yeah, I thought it's nice that the person's secret, or that we secretly worry, right? Because that means that that is a red flag. If there's something in our conscience that we're worrying about something, that's a good thing. It means that we know that something needs to change, or we need to do something about it.
So, issues of socialization. So, how does it look like to belong to the academic enterprise? How does a mentor facilitate this? How do you open someone's eyes to all of this? Is it possible?
How do we open the eyes of the mentees to these kinds of things? I think it happens throughout the course of any work day, of any regular day. There are opportunities arise, and we take advantage of those opportunities to teach them about something or guide them in something, and by listening. And so when there's a cue there that we need to step in and tell them something, do it naturally, because there are a lot of opportunities arise to talk to them about the different things throughout. And we have a long time with them. I mean, we have them in our labs or in our offices for quite a while, so it's important to
So I
stay.
hear what you're saying, a lot of communication. A lot of it is
Yeah, a lot of listening and explaining things.
well, I think they need more mentoring about what the process is. Even like I had students say, what's the difference between an assistant professor, an associate professor, and a tenure? I mean, when we're not even getting the basic terminology down, how are they going to even figure out what politics means in academia?
Yeah, all that. The different
There's a lot of
salaries and the
vocabulary.
public and all that, and give them all
What?
that
They have
information.
different salaries?
They'll actually go to the library to look that up.
Yeah, oh yeah, they do look up who makes what. Yeah, they do.
Yes. And they should.
And I think it's the point here is that those are all a lot of investments that you're making, and you have to refrain from bias, right? Because you are investing in this.
I don't know that we could refrain from bias as much as we could really try to see where it's coming from and acknowledge it and do things to control it. But there has to be an acknowledgement there that and be aware of where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And sometimes even explain that to them, because they're gonna have their own biases that will put in another as well.
Well, I think there are a lot of things that are hidden in academia that you don't learn until you make a false step, or graduate students, this non-research interest and personal goals. I have a student who's not interested in working on a thesis, but the mentor professor is forcing the topic because it meets that person's research goals for publication. But is that fair to the graduate student who becomes the cheap labor for the research development? I mean, I have a lot of ethical problems with that, but they're not my mentee.
That's one of those most difficult scenarios that are commonplace, because you have a grant and you have goals and you need the resource to be pursued.
Well, in biology,
So
you can
how-
understand that, though, because lots of dollars come into the sciences. But for social science, it's,
But how do you guide the student to make it their own,
right.
right? You
And-
can still meet the goals of the grant, but how do you guide the student that you say, well, this could be your own project,
Mhm.
you put your own flavor, but we're still meeting those goals. And that's a fine line. So the next question I want you to consider is, how might non-research interests and personal goals or obligations play into a mentee's decision about career path? So we're talking about non-research interests and personal goals.
I think it's important to talk about what their expectations are in the future. So, if they have certain expectations around time with family and being able to be home at night, then you don't want to be an ER doctor. I mean, that's really going to significantly influence what choice you make. So walking them through some of those questions that force them to think about it, even if it takes them a while to come up with responses, can be really valuable at helping them evaluate whether what their current plan is really matches what their ultimate goals are.
I have to say, my humble opinion, that with that is like also what is their perception of like what research entails, you know, because I feel like in any profession that you go to, you're gonna have to continue growing as a professional and educating yourself, so you're gonna have to keep researching it. You know, so what is it that they don't like about research? What aspect of it do they not want to go into?
Yeah, that's more than humble, it's honest. That's being honest. So consider the next thing here then.
One of the things that I've done is when we're traveling to a data collection somewhere, I take that time of an hour in the car and just start asking them some questions about how things are going for them, and just allowing it to be a time where we can connect a little bit more, not necessarily out there taking notes of what they're saying, but telling them some of my experiences and how my plans changed, and how the questions I might be asking them to consider really influenced me or someone else that I know. So not like trying to tell them this, you need to follow my path, but here's an example of how it could influence you, and just having some time that isn't as, well, we only have 15 minutes because we have to get on to the class, and just having more time to be able to talk through some of it and keep asking them more questions to pull out some of those responses.
These are critical factors that are going to set the atmosphere for that mentor-mentee relationship, right? It's how safe, secure the mentee feels to confide on the mentor, and also how open the mentor wants to be with the mentee as well. And how comfortable, you seem to feel very comfortable just bringing up this conversation and start asking, right?
I think it's because we've spent years building these relationships, because they're all graduate students at this point. But yeah,
It takes time.
it takes time.
It takes time. Like any relationship, right? It takes time.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed the 90 minutes with you. And I just want to say one thing. I cannot agree with you more. Talking in the car is like the best. In the car is the best time to talk. I just recently read an article about if you have difficulty talking to your teenager children, it's best to talk to them in the car. I just wanted to add.
I've always had the best conversations in the car. They ask you a question, you don't have to look at them.
Yeah, this is our first mentoring workshop this year. I think it's a good way to start this year. As you may not know, last month was National Mentoring Month. And we're going to have 2 more mentoring workshops. Hopefully we'll all see everybody next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.